All About Beer receives underwriting support from Trillium Brewing Company. They understand the importance of independent journalism in the beer space, and their support helps fund original work. Learn how you can affordably support journalists by visiting allaboutbeer.com/support.
Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Hall. The Barrel and Flow Festival takes place in Pittsburgh this weekend, and Dave Bracey is here to talk about all that goes into running a festival and how his has evolved over the past decade. But first, if you have story ideas or guest suggestions or just want to reach out, you can get me anytime on email at johnhall@allaboutbeer.com. That's JOHNHOLL @allaboutbeer.com. As you know, I've been talking about this on the show for a while, and you hear Andy at the cold open of every show. But the way we're able to keep bringing original content to the beer industry and to curious beer drinkers is through your support, and I can't stress this enough. We've created an affordable underwriting program that's easy on your budget, helps you get visibility, and is an altruistic way to directly fund writers, photographers, and editors. Please visit allaboutbeer.com/support to learn more. When you're at the website, poke around a bit. Read some of the recent articles, you can peruse the archives, and you can tune into other podcasts like One Iconic Beer, Brewer to Brewer, and the All About Beer podcast. You won't be disappointed. And you can follow us on social media at All About Beer to keep up with everything else we have going on. We'll get into the show in a moment, but here is a word from this episode's sponsors.
Today's brewers need hops that perform consistently, from pilot scale to full production. LupoCore was engineered to meet that challenge, delivering enhanced sensory performance, reliable dosing, and scalable brewing efficiency in an easy-to-use T90 format. Backed by Haas innovation and sensory expertise, LupoCore helps breweries create impactful hop character with confidence and control. Reach out to your Haas Sales Representative or visit lupohops.com for more information.
Here's a story brewers know all too well. You walk into the brewery straight to the tank. You pull a sample to do a forced diacetyl test and you wait for it in silence. Something feels not quite right. You reach into the water bath and bring the flask to your nose, and it's a butter bomb. The logistics start running through your head. Do we hold the tank? We have accounts waiting. How many days until it clears? And then you wake up and remember that you use Berkeley Yeast Fresh Chico. It's got ALDC inside every cell, so diacetyl never forms in the first place. Through primary, through dry hopping and hop creep, diacetyl stays ultra low. So you don't have to add ALDC or wait for diacetyl to clean up. And most importantly, you don't have to wake up in a cold sweat worrying about production nightmares like these. Fresh Chico is now available in dried bricks for as low as $88 at berkeleyyeast.com.
The 2026 edition of Barrel and Flow kicks off this weekend in Pittsburgh, and it's unfair to call the community-minded fest just a beer gathering. It's so much more than that. And to explain and to chart the evolution, I'm joined by Dave Bracey, the co-founder of the fest. He's also a comedian, the co-host of the award-winning Drinking Partners podcast, and the Emmy-nominated TV show Ed and Day in the Berg on very local TV. He joined me via Zoom, and here's our conversation. I was thinking back to some of the early days when I started with All About Beer, and they had the World Beer Festivals, and I'd have to go down to Durham and Raleigh and Columbia, South Carolina, and wherever they were going. And I was going down as the editor of the magazine and like, oh, I'm going to do some panels and I'm going to hang out. And then my first time down there, it's like, all right, well, we need you to grab this case and we need you to bring it over and then grab some ice. And I was like, wait, oh yeah, hang on a second. Like, I didn't realize being part of the organization was going to be one of those, like manual labor things. But I guess that's one of the things you learn early on. But thanks for doing this. I'm curious, as when you think back to the inception of what you wanted this fest to be and how the idea came about and then you get momentum going, because a lot of people have ideas and very few act on them. So you got it to fruition. As you head into the fest this coming weekend, as you look back to those first early thoughts, are you where you wanted it to be?
um No, I'm not. It actually exceeded all expectations. So I'm a comedian, and before that, and even during that, I was a social worker for, I was a social worker for 10 years. And I've had a bunch of different, worked in a bunch of different industries. But food beverages has always been it was the first job, first legal job, and the first, and it's always been, I always had some sort of like serving gig or something, on the side that I was working in. And even as I got into comedy, I realized that arts and entertainment are just another leg of the food and beverage industry, in that supply chain. The number one form of funding for all arts and entertainment is alcohol. So whether
Hmm.
you're kicking a ball or, playing a guitar or telling jokes, alcohol is what keeps the lights on. So, I was doing really well in the comedy side. We had the podcast, we had these shows, we're going around the country and we're doing all these like collabs with breweries and getting our names on tap handles and it was like things were booming. Um, but we noticed that we were like the only black folks in these rooms, and we started the festival with the idea like, all right, well, how do we bring more folks in? How do we give like not just like bring folks into the tap room, but like how do we bring more folks into this industry, this $1.7 trillion industry that we're all a part of in some way. We're at the end of the supply chain, right? Like we buy it. We're like 14% of sales here in America, but we're less than 1% of ownership. And you look at all of the things that you go into these breweries and you hear rap music, you see Biggie lyrics on the labels and whatnot. Like all of this black culture is permeated throughout this brew scene, but you don't see us there. So we were like, well, how do we get more of us into this like industry? And when we started the festival, it was just like a stopgap. It was like, we had shows 2, 3 nights a week that we were producing, 2, 3 nights a month that we were producing, and we were performing, like 2, 3 nights a week. So like we were pretty busy, and August was like the downtime because, people don't want to go see jokes like in the summertime because you got to compete with God, like the sun's out and shit like that,
Yeah.
right? So, we were like, all right, let's put this here. And this is a nice like way we can like, maybe give back to the community. And we were expecting sellout was 700. And I was hoping like maybe we can get 500 in. And we ended up selling 1,200 tickets. I mean? We like ran out of glasses. We had to go to Restaurant Depot, get more glasses. Like we ran out Restaurant Depot closed. We had to get Dixie cups and shit. It was wild. And then the next year we sold 3,400 tickets. And at that point it became this like international phenomenon. Like we had couples that had flown, this couple flew in from India to volunteer for the festival. It showed how, like, I knew that there was a void, but I didn't realize how deep that void was and like how hungry people were to just like see people that were interested in this thing that, looked like them. From the very beginning, it went beyond expectations, and it stopped being like, my festival at that point. Like after the first festival, it was a community of people that were like, all right, so what do we do next? And here we are, like, this is our ninth festival, ninth year doing the festival or whatever. Barcelona and New Orleans, and like none of this was expected in any way, in any way, shape, or form. And now I just find myself like lucky to feel like I'm a part of this community.
I was going back through notes and old press releases and emails and prep for this conversation with you. And one of the things that I realized, and you just kind of touched on this, is the voice that you used to promote the fest early on was unlike anything else that was happening in the industry, beer festival wise. Like you were speaking like real people to people. And there's something about that where when I go back a decade and I think about some of those beer festivals that were happening in 16, 15, 16, 17, where there were, it was hazy IPA was just starting to really take off. And, we still had, the beer nerds of, Beer Advocate, and Untapped was starting to become this cultural force, for good or for bad, whatever. And like the nerds were kind of running the craft beer game. And it was, well, if I don't know who they are, I'm not going to be there. Or, I'm only going to go for the first name club, or I'm only going to go for, a rare taste, a 1 ounce pour of, some triple hop, nonsense, whatever. Um, and they all just kind of had the sameness to it. And then when you guys, started this, it wasn't that. Like, it was in respect of the beer. It was about community. It was about bringing people together for fellowship and a good time, and music and hospitality and all of that. But it definitely had a different cadence to how you were promoting it, and I'm sure that was purposeful. um but as you look back now, does did that early messaging, I guess, did it put you where you are now?
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I mean, basically, we were like, fuck the beer, right? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, so comedy, got a podcast or whatever. We work with all these breweries. I went to the beer festivals, and like the first time I went, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe like I can get like fucked up. I drink all these different beers. Like, oh my God. I mean, I like I was dressed as a beer bottle and shit. Like, we were like going around interviewing brewers. Like, it was a shit show, right? And I was like, man, that's so dope. But like literally it was like the third one I went to, I was like bored. I was like, well, what else is there?
It
Right?
gets old really
Like
fast.
what
It
else?
gets old
What
really
like
fast.
what
Yeah.
else is there? You know what I mean? Like so for years, people were like, "Yo, you should do a beer. Like, you're in the beer and you're in the like, events. Why don't you do a beer festival?" I was like, "Cause those shits are lame. Like, like, I nah. You know what I mean?" So it wasn't until I went to Trogs. We did a collaboration. They had us out there to interview them for like their 20th anniversary. And I met the brothers, and like we did this tour, and like then you got to talking to them. And they told us about how like they moved into this area that didn't have a whole lot happening, but like there was a this Hershey Park right next to it. You know what I mean? Theme park.
Yeah.
And then they built there and whatnot, and like because there was a brewery there, people would like get hotels closer to where they were at, and then people would buy homes because okay, cool, I want to be near a brewery. And then they like were promoting from within. So like you could start out like, wiping kegs or whatever and then be a head brewer, right? Like which their head brewer at the time was like, started from the bottom and like, went up. And that's kind of like when it clicked for me, like beer as this like economic like driving force of like, oh shit, you know, what if you have a brewery and a coffee shop in a black neighborhood, right? Because that's the beginning of gentrification. As soon as you get a brewery and a coffee shop, we get walking papers, right?
Hmm.
Now, but what happens if it's a black owned brewery and a black owned coffee shop, the two most consumed drugs on the planet? What does that look like for our community? And that's when I was like, oh, why don't we like put on a festival, use a festival format to kind of like bring people together, like like do the same collaborations that we did. Like we went around all these different places, got to like see the brewing process, hang out with brewers, like learn all this shit. We did live podcasts at their thing. We're like meeting their peoples and all this. Is like, oh shit, like, well, what if we gave other people that experience, right? And we like showed them all the ways in which you could be a part of this industry and not have to actually even brew beer. You could brew beer if you want. This festival has spurned, like at least a half a dozen new breweries, black owned. But we've also have artists that are like, designing labels and now like designing murals because their artwork has been seen on various cans. You have breweries that are, hiring various food vendors and are giving space for artists and DJs and musicians. And like, you're seeing all these things happen, because at the very beginning, it was like, it doesn't have to be about just the beer. It doesn't like, we don't want to just sit around and talk about hops and ABVs all day. Like beer and alcohol is a social lubricant. It's supposed to bring us together, but
Hmm.
like we should be getting to know each other, not just like, I mean, there's a space for that for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll get down with the nerdiest of them, but at some point you start scaring them, B, and you need to turn the conversation, and that's really where, like, in the black community, black folks don't really like drink beer, and like they drink beer, but it's not the focal point. Rarely is alcohol the focal point in most, like, places, right? Outside of the craft beer scene, the focal point isn't the alcohol that you're drinking. It's nice. You might be like, oh, I got a nice bottle, but you don't sit around and wax poetic about that bottle all day. So by having that, like, I had a friend of mine that had a brew festival around the same time. And she was like, she asked me, she goes, how do you get all the like the nerds to show up to it? Like, the white dudes over there. I was like, I don't care about them.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, they're gonna show up as long as X, Y, and Z is there. Right. Like,
Right.
they see a thing or whatever. And as long as it has enough hype names on there or whatever, they're going to show up. I'm not marketing to them. I'm marketing to everybody else, the majority of people, because that's the majority. The majority of people are not craft drinkers. And by building that event, like in a place where it's like, let's have fun. Oh, yeah. And there's also all of these finely made craft beers specifically for this event that you get to try and like not break your wallet and not have to worry about getting pulled over because you ventured into a white neighborhood to get it.
I mean, that's sort of what I was getting at with that early messaging where the nerds were running the full conversation and it was almost impossible to talk about. And I'll admit that I was probably part of that problem, in articles that we were publishing and coverage that we were doing, because it really was, you know, it was almost like speed, where if the craft beer bus got below 50 miles an hour, the whole thing was just going to implode. Like
Yeah.
it had that sort of frenetic energy to it. What do you mean you haven't had XYZ? Or, oh my God, you didn't stand in line for this? Or, like I remember writing about leaving Hill Farmstead once and having like 5 different guys approach me in the parking lot, like offering to buy beer that I had just gotten inside the brewery, before I even got to my car. It's like it was bananas
Yeah, people were like
at that
lining
point.
up and shit on like I watched see
Yeah.
like pictures of folks and like video of folks like lining up on like Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. to get a beer release. And I was like, like, what do you do for work?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and even like, there's the jokes that came out at the time of, like grandma's going to be a mule for you in line for, your, whatever new beer, had just came out. And it's like, no, there's actually grandmas standing in line. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't just a joke. But
yeah.
so by focusing on not just the beer or the people who were going to be there, I think it laid the groundwork for other festivals to sort of be like, okay, like let's take a beat here. Let's, try to bring in cool vendors. Let's try to bring in some music. Let's try to bring in things that, are maybe beer adjacent. Like let's talk about art. Let's talk about, actual business. Let's talk, like all
Yeah,
of
let's
those
step your
things.
fucking game up and like you and support the community that is supporting you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Um, so as you look then to this year, what are you excited about? I mean, you got a lot of kegs to move, you got a lot of things to be worrying about, but is there something that's sort of in the back of your mind where you're like, yeah, I'm glad we're doing this and I'm excited for people to experience this, and not the app. I'm going to talk to you about the app in a second.
Yeah. um, so
I
like
mean, and if it is the app, like that's fine.
yeah,
Like,
no.
yeah,
So
it's
like
yeah, it's,
we did Barrels on the Bayou, right?
yep.
It was a scaled down version of Barrel and Flow in New Orleans. And we were able to introduce Barrel and Flow and like, like so in the mission, right? So New Orleans is the number one seller of alcohol like in the country.
Hmm.
The population is like 300 some thousand people, right? They're like 70% black, but like none of that money goes to the black neighborhoods, right? Like there's one black owned brewery in the state of Louisiana. And like the only black owned thing that I saw on shelves was like Uncle Nearest, which is, questionably black, right? Yeah, I mean, so
Well, questionably in business right now, but
yeah,
yes.
exactly, right? Yeah, I mean, so like you have like this opportunity like in this place is like the epicenter of art and culture here in America, and there you see black people living and working and like pushing all of this art and like culture or whatever that's selling this booze, but they're not making any of that back. So we were able to do Barrels on the Bayou and introduce a new community to the mission. The same way that like access is the big thing about this festival, like just access to this industry and the ways in which we can give more people that. And, like not a lot of people can buy a ticket up to Pittsburgh. So being able to take it down south, we were able to reach, we had so many people come in from Texas and Alabama, that panhandle, like Florida and Atlanta,
Yeah.
like, and they were like, oh, I've heard about it, but like I couldn't make it up there. And this is just a quick drive or a flight or da 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 da. And it was a beautiful moment. And then, like from there, I just kind of, I don't know, like I've been hearing all these stories about various breweries that have opened up, and I came back from that, and when I came back, Ultra Genius was just bought by Daylin. That's the first Black woman-owned brewery in the state of PA. Black Brewhouse opened up while I was away. That's TLC Libations, which is the first Black woman-owned distillery in the state of PA. Wendy Bridges, which is the first Black owned brewery in the city of Pittsburgh. They share a brew house downtown now, where they're like a tap room downtown.
Oh, okay.
So like when we started this festival, there were no black owned breweries here in the state of PA. No brick and mortars.
Right.
Now we have four. And three of them opened up within the last like 3 months here in Pittsburgh. And like that for me, just it's so rare that you get to like do something and then see the fruits of your labor happen in your lifetime even. But like, I'm like, oh, maybe someday. And they go, Dave, you got to open up a brewery. And I'm like, that's not my lane. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You get that question too. I get that all the time.
yeah, why don't you open up a brewery? That's
It's,
not what I do. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
that is, yeah.
Not everybody that loves movies wants to be an actor, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so but to see that happen in this succession or whatever, and like to be able to like bring that down to New Orleans, and like big up, they don't have a big like craft brewery scene down there in New Orleans, and like to be able to hold that, like it's just this summer have for me has just been like very cup filling, and like with this festival, I'm just like I feel like this is the first time I'll get to maybe see and appreciate what it is, as opposed to constantly building and growing, expanding, and like, fighting, and, all the, you're down, your head's in the ground so much. And like, I mean? And like this year, it feels like one, it's a system, it's very well supported. It has such a beautiful community. And like anybody that comes to that is guaranteed to have a good time, because the people there, and like that's the thing that I've noticed like throughout these years, is just like the people there and the community that we've built is like year in, year out, they keep growing, they keep getting better. They grow closer together, and it's such a welcoming environment, and they're excited to bring new people into it, that like it's become kind of a cult where like you walk in, like people go, oh, I've heard about it, I'm gonna check it out, and then they leave and they go, oh my God, I'm bringing everybody I know to this thing, right? Like, so I'm just kind of excited to, see some of these like folks. Like this is the first year that Black Brew House will be there, Ultra Genius will be there. Funky Town is, working with Sam Adams and like doing some cool stuff over there. And like, Smittix is just opened up down in Dallas. Like, so there's, I'm very excited to see all the new breweries, all the new faces, both opening up, and, people who have been like, oh, I've heard about it, and now I'm here.
I like that because a decade in or thereabouts, like I feel like sometimes people start to lose momentum a little bit, or, it's, yeah, we've been doing this for a while, but like it to hear you hitting the stride and being able to see, some of those seeds that you all help plant, like that's really cool. I really like that. Um, I know I've had this conversation with you in the past. It's been a while, but I still have never been. And that's on me. For first time attendees, what's it like? What should folks expect when you walk
Um,
in?
that's
Because we're
hard
saying
because
because we're saying it's not about the beer, or it
yeah,
is, but it's not, and everything that you just sort of like laid out. But like, how do you describe it to folks who have never been before?
yeah. I mean, it's hard because I've never actually attended this festival. So
Right.
so much of the information that I get like is secondhand. Like, you know what I mean? Me traveling around and like people like walking up to me and like telling me stories about like a beer they had or a song they heard or the vibes and the people and like, all the, and they didn't know what to expect and and they'll never not miss another one and all these things or whatever, right? Like for me, it's like just a bunch of dumpster fires and then bills. But
Right.
like but like so we have 30 food vendors, right? It's the best food festival in Pittsburgh. We do a really good job of curating. We start so everything is application based and we
Hmm.
start in January so that we get the cream of the crop of everybody early planning. So we have such a variety of food. We've got folks for stuff for vegans and vegetarians, and we've got Caribbeans and barbecues and burgers and things of that nature. We've got and a lot of the folks are, more kind of like smaller, like caterers and things of that nature. So like, you're not just going to get some, Burger King kind of like big chain type situation. These are like, they're cooking their ass off. So I love the food section. We have 30 goods and service vendors. So like, all these different small businesses that have like trinkets and hot sauces and, whatever else that they have, like, I mean, quite, decent variety of that. We have, uh, what is it this year? We have like, I think we have 60 vending slots for alcohol. So I believe about 35 of those are black owned breweries, wineries, distilleries. And then the other 30 are collaboration brews. So, they go in with a black artist, entrepreneur, politician, and they come up with a new product and then they pay and accredit a black artist for the label. And they're there together and they pour at the same table. So like they share a table. So I mean, every like collaboration you go, not only are you getting a new beer or a cocktail or a seltzer or whatever it is that they came up with, but you're also hearing like this story of like how they came up with it. You're meeting two small business owners and like they're gonna have something cool at the table, right? Like people make trinkets. People have like, social service missions. Some people are, social media folks or this, that, and the other, right? They're influencers and da da da. Like, so then they come with their own little flares and they dress up the tents and whatnot. And then we have like, various activations, glass blowing. We got a massage parlor. We got like a cigar shop and shit. We got all these like different activations where you can like, there's going to be some beehives there. You can like interact with the bees. Then we have two music stages, right? We got a live music
That
stage.
that that's not like a euphemism, right? You're actually going to have like live beat, like the
There's
insects,
gonna be
like the
live
honey
bees
maker.
there.
Okay,
Yeah. Our insurance is
cool.
gonna
I've
cover it.
seen My Girl. I'm out.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, so they got we got two live music stages. Live like we got two music stages, a live music stage, and then a DJ stage, and then we have four live artists, live art stage. So we buy supplies for I believe it's like 8 different artists throughout the day, and they paint live. They can get to vend their things and whatnot. Um, and yeah, I mean, like, some nonprofits and the Steam section and VIP. So like, every section has a little bit of something, right? And like, despite just, you got all the activations and things to do, whatever. But then you're gonna come in and you're just gonna come into this like super welcoming environment because everybody at the door is paid at least $20 to $25 an hour to be there. All of our vendors got low fees. The tickets are dumb cheap. We pay all our breweries, we pay all of our artists, right? Like, so nobody, and we set up our food so that, each food vendor has at least 150 to 200 people there. So the food vendors are happy because we're not just like a cash grab. And
Yeah.
we only fill it to 60% capacity. So it could hold 10,000, but we only have well, I think it's 8,000 people, but we only have about like 4,500 people there on site. And that is so that you have room to move around. So you're not going to get in there's not going to be any lines. You're not going to be bumping into people, right? Like you have room to kind of hang out, have conversations. You're not just like jumping from tent to tent trying to get the highest ABV alcohol. Everywhere you go, you're going to see some vibrant person either behind the booth or in front of the booth, like excited to be there because this is folks' favorite day of the year and they travel and it's an international crowd, right? So like,
Yep.
you have like folks, we had this map and like, every continent was like, where'd you come from? Like map the flow. And like every continent was like represented outside of, the cold ones in Australia. And then like, people are excited and they're like very welcoming. So like if you come by yourself, a lot of people have the anxiety, and I've heard these stories where like, oh, I was so anxious, I never go anywhere by myself, but I made it, and man, I made a friend as soon as I walked in, and and it was just like, and that's the story because everybody there is like okay, like because it's mission based, right? Everybody there, like we're not just selling tickets to be like, okay, come in and get shit faced.
Hmm.
Like, we've only had to kick out 4 people at this festival, and they've all been white people in the 9 years that we've been doing this festival, right? Like nobody comes in here to start shit. Everybody's like, we check that shit at the door. We make sure our discrimination policies is good. We keep it on their tickets. We make sure everybody knows, like when you walk in here, you got to act right. But if you act right, you can have the time of your lives, and people do.
So I mentioned this app. So right before we went on, I said, "Hey, anything you want me to bring up?" And you're like, "I need you to talk about the app." And now that you've explained everything that happens within the fest grounds, I fully understand why you have the need for an app. I am a Luddite. I hate having more things on my phone than I need to have on my phone. Um, but I feel like I would need it if I was coming in this weekend, just simply because of everything that you just laid out is going on.
Well, so I mean, that's
Yeah.
just the fest grounds on Saturday. That's not so it's Barrel and Flow Week, right? I mean, it's proclaimed to be Barrel and Flow Week in the city or the county of Allegheny, right? So we have events starting tomorrow, and they go through Sunday, and they are
So
throughout the
Tuesday
city.
through Sunday. Yeah.
Tuesday through Sunday. Yeah, I mean, like, and like multiple venues. We got the conference on Friday. We got the bottle share that evening. We got the after party. We got the brunch on Sunday. So, like, it's an action-packed week of shit happening. And no, I mean, how you going to know? You going to scroll through the whole Instagram to get all that shit? Yeah, I mean, like, you could just have it on your phone and you'd be like, okay,
I mean,
cool.
don't shame my internet habits.
Yeah.
That's how I do it. But that's
I mean, you can, like,
yeah.
but folks, like it's easy. You pop it up, and all the information is there. And then I get a lot of questions, right? Even like after the fest, they go, "Oh, Day, do you know a vendor? Do you know an artist? Or who was that so and so? Or da 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 da." Like, I'm a part-time resource coordinator, so like, instead of I'm always sending links and spreadsheets and this. Yo, here, download the app, and now you can see a whole list of black-owned vendors that you can hire for an event, black artists that you can hire for an event, right? Like sponsors that you may want to reach out to for this, that, and the other, right? Like, I mean, anything that I'm doing, I'm giving everybody the keys. Like, here, contact them yourself.
So this is airing on Wednesday, dropping midnight Wednesday Eastern. So there's time to get out to Pittsburgh if people want to take part in all of the various things that are going on from Wednesday and beyond. Tickets are still available, yeah?
Yeah, they're available.
Okay. Where aside from the app or the website, where are you putting people
I
to get
mean,
those tickets?
it's the website,
All right.
barrelandflow.com.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, one more time where people should go to get tickets and then to plan on being in Pittsburgh this weekend.
Barrelandflow.com.
Awesome. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for not only the show, but the fest and all the other stuff that you're doing. It's fun to read from afar, and important to read from afar. And yeah, I appreciate the time. What's a fest that should not be missed? Drop me a line via email. It's johnholl@allaboutbeer.com. That's JOHNHOLL @allaboutbeer.com. Make sure you join the This Week in Rauk Beer group on Facebook, or follow @TW Rauk Beer on Instagram. Upload your photos and join the conversation. And you can support us by visiting allaboutbeer.com/support. When you're at the website, you can check out new content as well as the archives, which go all the way back to 1979. And you can also find links to follow All About Beer on social media. Here is a note from this episode's sponsors before we run. We thank them for their support. We hope you'll give them your business.
Tim Shasha from Berkeley Yeast here. When I was the director of brewing at Cellarmaker, there was a time when I was really wrestling with hop creep and diacetyl. I'd be dumping liters of ALDC into the tank, at knockout, at dry hop, before cooling, just hoping that it would work. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. That's when I reached out to my friends over at Berkeley Yeast. I was like, why don't you just put the ALDC in the yeast? And the next thing I knew, Fresh Chico was born. Just like that, all my hop creep woes were gone, which was really cool. But an even bigger thing I noticed is that when I switched, all my beers were popping more. And that's when I figured out that diacetyl doesn't just mean butter. It was also dulling the brightness and intensity of my hops, masking those flavors even when D was below threshold. For me, Fresh Chico was a life changer. And now that you can get it dry, it's easy to use and competitively priced. It's the full package. Find out more at berkeleyyeast.com.
This episode is sponsored by John I. Haas on their new LupoCore Enhanced T90 hop pellets, engineered for peak sensory performance and ultimate peace of mind. Designed for brewers of all sizes, LupoCore delivers consistent sensory outcomes, reliable brewhouse performance, and scalable application across production volumes. Using Sensory Plus selected hops and Haas's advanced pellet processing technology, LupoCore elevates hop expression while reducing brew process loss, all without requiring brewers to change their process. Contact your Haas Sales Representative or visit lupohops.com to learn more.
If you like smart audio content, a reminder that All About Beer has a separate podcast channel. Search and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. You can listen to shows like Brewer to Brewer, which is now a weekly show, and the All About Beer podcast with Don Tess and M. Souter. Also, the One Iconic Beer podcast. Steal This Beer has new episodes every Monday. The BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. And as for the show, Nate Schweber does the music, Jeff Quinn designed our logo. I'm John Hall. New episodes release every Wednesday, and that's when I'll be back again to drink beer and to think beer.